Joining us now, Robert Duvall, whose new movie, 7 Days in Utopia, is now in theaters. Mr. Duvall, welcome.
Oh, yes, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, baby. I was telling Kevin earlier, this is how I go to movies. I go, people go, you want to go to a movie? I go, is Robert Duvall in it? They go, yes, I go.
Well, all right, Dave. That's okay. If that's what you really mean, that's fine.
I really mean it. And I consider you the greatest actor in the world.
Well, thank you very much.
And I wonder, because I always think if somebody is the best, they know it at some level. And also, I know that you're a man of faith and false modesty is a sin. And I was wondering, do you consider yourself the greatest actor in the world?
I think I can hold my own with a lot of people. So I don't know if there's one person that's the greatest. Some people say Daniel Day-Lewis is the best. He's improved. I didn't used to like him. I like him a lot now. But there's a group that are very good. So I don't know if anybody's the best.
Well, here's how I am with acting. I have a lot of problems with acting because I have trouble suspending my disbelief. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of times when I'm watching an actor, I can see him acting. Like I'm going, oh, that guy's acting.
Right.
I don't see that with you. Never.
Well, you try to keep it invisible. You try to take it back to just the basic premise of I talk, you listen, I talk, to keep it that simple between the words action and cut, if you're doing film, so you try to keep it as simple as possible. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, an actor... Well, let's say a guy is always himself, you know what I mean? Like a guy like John Wayne or something like that.
He could be very good.
Him, I believe, because there's no disconnect between what I see when he's interviewed and what I see. But you, on the other hand, are different in every role.
Well, you still got to bring yourself underneath. There's only one you, right?
Right, that's true, yeah.
So you can't really become something that you're not. You create the illusion of something else, but it's you underneath. You got one set of emotions, one psyche, one everything. So you have to know how to use yourself to bend it or whatever to make it seem like it's something else.
Now, I've noticed in your body of work, obviously talking to you, you're an incredibly literate person and a very thinking person. And I met you one time. I'll tell you this. I met you one time at Saturday Night Live. Garth Brooks was the host, and you came in.
Oh, yeah, right.
And I was very excited because you were going to do I don't know if you remember this, you were going to do a song.
Yeah.
And you didn't do it, and I was very sad about that. But I was so, I wanted to meet you so bad, and then I met you and I talked to you, and I had all these questions for you. And then you started talking to me and asking me questions. And you were looking at me very deeply and asking me, because I come from a rural farm area in Canada, and you were asking me about ranchers and stuff like that. And I don't know if you did that to deflect my questions or if you do that to study people and steal their soul.
I don't know. What part? Where are you from? From what part of Canada?
So you're doing it right now. I'm from rural Alberta.
I love Alberta. That's the only part of Canada I really like.
Oh, really?
I love Alberta. The ranch people up there, the Buse family. It's good people up there. Great people. Yeah.
And that brings me to you. You often portray the common man. Is that something that you're not Southern, but you've played a lot of Southern characters?
Well, my dad's from Virginia, and that's the beginning of the South, so I feel comfortable, I like the Southeast Conference Football League, and I feel okay in the South, even though, in Texas, too, some of my mother's people are from Texas, which is below the Mason-Dixon line, so to speak, Yeah, I like to portray the common man, except, when I played, one of my favorite parts was when I played Joseph Stalin. He wasn't so he was common, but not so common,
So you don't mind playing a guy that you have to figure out the good part of him or something? No,
each part's a challenge, so, you go with what you have to do, research or whatever, and just jump in and do it,
Now, Kevin Farley has a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you ever been like, you've done some big movies with big actors. Was it ever hard? Like, did you get nervous, and how do you deal with your nerves? When you have to really bring your game, your A game, and that could, like, say, The Godfather with the scenes with Brando or anything like that. Were you ever really nervous, where you had trouble like controlling your nerves? Where you're like, oh gosh.
Yeah. Well, the last job I did was the most nervous I've ever got in my career. I worked with Billy Bob Thornton. I call him the hillbilly Orson Welles. The guy's brilliant, and we did an interesting movie. And the night before, I had to do a scene, and it worked, but I was so frightened. I had to do a guy that his grandson slips LSD in his iced tea.
Wow.
And I had to, like, unbeknownst, so I did. I think that intense fear helped propel me into the scene and make it work in a strange way.
Yeah.
Because it was a very demanding scene, but it worked. It worked, and Billy doesn't care if you change things. Some of these directors you can't change to A to air.
Yeah.
But a guy like Billy, he leaves it open, even though the writing is brilliant. What he's done, he lets you come up with stuff at the moment, which is very very admirable. I think.
Yeah.
It is interesting that you bring up Billy Bob Thornton, because I agree with you. When I saw Sling Blade, I was like, this guy is exactly what you said. I said, this guy's Orson Welles. How did he do
absolutely.
this?
He's up there with Coppola or Altman or any of them for me. Yeah.
But then he stopped.
Well, he stopped, and he has a country band. He goes around. So I sent a message to him, do you sing as good as Lefty Frizzell, knowing the answer, I guess he sings okay. I don't know. But, he's got to get back to his A game, because the guy, he wrote, directed, and acted, and he's on a high level in all those aspects.
Well, can I ask you a question? Because you were in Sling Blade. You played his dad.
Yeah.
This may be I don't know if you want to answer this question or not, but you're an honest guy, right?
Sometimes. Yeah.
You go on Sling Blade.
Yeah.
You're watching that. Does that character he did in Sling Blade remind you of a character you may have done 30 years ago?
Well, yeah, that's what Horton Foote thought, maybe. You're talking about Tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's what Horton Foote thought maybe he was doing me, but I don't think so. I don't know if he ever even saw that. But not really, maybe a little bit. They could have been cousins, so to speak, yeah. But, when I did it with Billy Bob, there was no script. He just rolled the camera and we improvised.
Is that right?
Was it.
Wow.
So, he's great to work with, and he's got some more things he's going to do, and he's great.
You have an incredible taste in the choices you make, right? You must put thought into this.
Do what now?
Are you a literary person?
Well, somewhat. I read. What I want to read. I'm reading a lot of stuff on the Comanche Indians now, because a friend of mine may direct Empire of the Summer Moon, that terrific script on.
Oh yeah.
I guess I may be wrong, but Horton Foote once said people don't know what goes on beyond the South Jersey Shore from New York necessarily, right. And I think that I don't know what I saw of The Searchers. It may be a great movie by John Ford, but what I saw, I got to watch the whole thing. I found some of it corny. Yeah. Melodramatic.
You found some of The Searchers corny?
Yes, absolutely.
Which parts?
Absolutely. Please come home. Please come back. And this book deals with the real thing of that woman that was captured by by the Comanches.
Sure.
And, but if you criticize, a friend of mine once said, if you criticize John Ford, and like I got this great icon from Hollywood, it's like attacking motherhood.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's some of those old guys. Like when I did True Grit, that was one of the worst directors I ever worked with in my life, Henry Hathaway.
Yeah,
one of the worst. Some of those old guys were like tyrants,
Yeah.
The opposite of Billy Bob.
Right.
Yeah. And I remember you saying one time that I found interesting, that you either like the new kind of acting or the old kind of acting, and you don't like the old kind of acting.
Well, a guy like Spencer Tracy, for the most part, was terrific. Of course, when he did Old Man in the Sea, the Communist daily newspaper in Havana, Cuba, blasted him, saying that here's a Anglo-Saxon trying to play a Cuban, but actually, when he was right, like Bad Dad, Black Rock, he was wonderful. But I think that the young actors today are better than ever.
You do?
Absolutely. You go in each country. Look at the African Americans, the black actors we have now. They never could act before. Before it was like Uncle Tom time.
Right.
Wonderful black actors, Spanish actors, guys in Argentina I know, wonderful actors, Spain, England. You know, it's open to all now. It's an in medium that's open to all. So I think, I mean, there's good and bad still, but I think overall the young actors, the bar's been raised. Maybe those who went before, we helped them find that aspect of it all. But no, I really think that it's open for all, and there's still bad work, obviously, and bad movies, but some of the young actors are wonderful.
Well, tell us about this young actor that you're working with in 7 Days.
He's as good as they get. He's terrific. Lucas Black. He's a scratch golfer. Wow. It's the only movie ever where the lead actor can hit the ball, really.
Yeah,
he's
no, that's true.
Guy. In between takes, he said, I will challenge the world champion turkey caller and beat him. He does these phenomenal animal calls because he grew up with nature, fishing in the backwoods of Alabama.
Oh, wow.
He's a terrific kid, and when we did the movie, it was wonderful to go work in Texas with just great people down in that hill country, and the Lou Waters and his family, and Ken Herford and the golf pro stand. All these wonderful people welcomed us, and it was great working with. That's one of the reasons I took it to work with Lucas.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to love it because I love golf. I don't think you love golf, but I love golf.
Well, I like it okay. It just takes too much time.
Yeah, it's a long time.
It does.
And my good friend Jimmy Kahn's always out playing, but I'm afraid to ask him his handicap because I know he'll exaggerate.
Yeah, a lot of golfers lie. I read a thing once in Golf Digest. They went out because it's very, a lot of integrity of real golfers, And it was.
Yeah, well, I've heard of guys picking up the ball when you're not looking and throwing it another 100 feet.
Yeah.
Or on the scorecard, I guess it's easier to cheat consciously and unconsciously,
Sure. My second favorite golfer behind Tiger is in your movie, KJ Choi.
Oh, he's terrific. Yeah.
Was he a cool guy?
Yeah, I didn't get to know him, but they say he is. Yeah, he played a villain, but he's supposed to be really a terrific, really a nice guy, So it was interesting working with those guys. I love working in Texas.
Yeah. We should talk about Lonesome Dove because that's
my favorite part.
That's your favorite part ever?
Yeah, ever.
Real, not Tender Mercies?
No, ever. No. I said let the English play Hamlet and King Lear. I'll play Augustus McCrae.
What's interesting? I just thought of this, but you, in many, like we were talking about Tomorrow, Boo Radley, obviously, you played.
Horton Foote, the great writer, my friend. It was wonderful, man.
And so many of these parts that you played were very, is the word taciturn? People that don't speak very, is that a word?
Yes.
I don't know if that's a word. But you don't speak a lot, and in Tomorrow, you virtually don't speak at all.
Well, when I did, I saw a guy in southern Missouri wants to talk like a cow. So that's the way I kind of did it. We did it as a stage play first for 25 performances at Herbert Berghoff's studio in New York City, and then we did the movie afterwards,
Yeah.
So it was like a complete experience.
But it just occurred to me since you played these characters before Lonesome Dove that were very non-verbose, that maybe Call would be the guy that you would play.
Well, that's what McMurtry still says that I should have played Call. He wrote it. He's absolutely out to lunch on that.
You mean after the movie?
My ex-wife said to me, I read a novel I like better than Dostoevsky. Don't let them talk to you into playing Call. You got to play this other guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I really.
So even after the miniseries, McMurtry thought you were miscast.
Yeah, well, that shows you where his head is.
Well, can we come back? Can you stay for another thing? Because I wanted to talk about faith with you.
Yeah, okay, yeah. We'll talk about a little faith. Come on, let's do that.
That'd be cool, baby. All right, we'll be back with the greatest actor in the world by my standard and by his own, self-admitted. I wanted to talk about country music because I love country music, and I know Robert Duvall.
Oh, yeah, I like it. I love it, yeah.
Yeah, and we actually have a common friend, Billy Joe Shaver, who I love.
Oh, Billy Joe, my wife made a wonderful documentary on him.
I saw it. It was awesome.
Oh, he was so natural in front of the camera. When I put him in the Apostle way back the second day, he came out and said, "Hell, I got this deal licked," he said.
Now, listen, if there's a guy whose life story should be made into a movie, isn't it that guy?
I think so. Chris Christopherson once said, if life was a television show, Billy Joe Shaver's come on every morning at 4 a.m.
I want to ask you this, Mr. Duvall, because I want to, since we were talking about country music and Billy Joe Shaver and stuff, when I talk to Billy Joe Shaver, this is what I love about country music, and I talk to him about writing a lot. Right. And he says that the hardest thing about it is taking very big ideas and putting them in very small writing, very pithy writing,
right.
Not to be over. And it strikes me that your acting is like that, like a lot of the things that you do, like in Tender Mercies, which I loved, you don't speak a lot.
Right. Yeah. So now what's the question?
The question is that why you love country music?
No, I just like country music because I've always listened to. My brothers sang opera and they were classically trained, and I always just loved country music. That's what I loved it.
Now, I suppose you'd say that's corny, too. You seem to say everything's corny.
Well, no. There's a legitimate sense of melodrama. I mean, you find that in Shakespeare. Melodrama can be very valid, things that seem melodramatic,
Right, because I'm always defending country music, because people say to me, like, oh, country music, it's just about, your dog dying, you're losing your truck, and you're...
Right, play it all backwards.
Yeah, but I go, that's life. That's what life is.
Yeah, but the point is, I took my wife to her first opera here in Washington, D.C., where they played they put the subtitles up there, what they were singing in Italian. It was far cornier and simplistic than any country song I ever heard. So you're country musicians you like Lefty Frizzell, you said? Yeah, well, I love Merle Haggard, but there's so many I like. I like Bobby Bare. I loved Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash. They died too young, these guys.
Yeah.
Well, Waylon Jennings, he was the greatest. It's interesting you mentioned...
Tammy Wynette was wonderful. She was a wonderful lady.
Yeah, you like lady singers?
Talking about it. Yeah.
What about... It's interesting you bring up Merle Haggard, because I might be way off base, but when I saw Tender Mercies, I'm like, oh, he's doing Merle.
Well, that's what somebody thought. That's what Willie Nelson asked me if I was aping Merle Haggard. I said, well, I love him. I don't know if I was aping him or not, but maybe, and then George Jones said it was his life story, which it wasn't. So I don't know. But speaking of faith-based, real quick, Billy Joe Shavers, he lost his son, his mother, and his wife, who he married 3 times. He lost them. They died all in 1 year.
It was incredible. It was like Job.
Yeah, I said, Billy Joe, how'd you get through this? He pointed to his chest and said, Jesus Christ. Now, you can't say that in New York City. Up north, you don't do that. But down there in the south, all those guys, they're pretty inundated in the philosophy and beliefs of Jesus Christ. So that's what he said to me at one point, Billy Joe.
Yeah, they're not afraid to say it. And you're right. If you say it, like I live in Los Angeles, if you say such a thing, people will look at you like you're saying you have Down syndrome or something.
Yeah, well, who's the writer from Alabama? He wrote a book all over but the shouting. I forget his name. He wrote for the New York, one of the New York papers. I forget the guy's name right now. He brought that up out in the South. You do that, but once you get above the Mason-Dixon line, sometimes it's difficult to bring up Jesus or anybody like that because they look at you like you're a square or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they look at you like they reduced him to a silly character.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And I'm sure that must have been your motive in writing and directing and starring in The Apostle.
Well, yeah, it took me many years to get it off the ground. I did. I had to use my own money and everything. Had I done it in Hollywood, they would have never done it correctly. They would have paid me big time, patronized the subject, patronized certain regions in America. When I did it, I put up my own money. I got my money back plus change, and that was it. But I got great satisfaction in doing it.
Yeah.
Because I got from both ends. I heard that the great preacher, from Billy Graham liked it, And then I got a wonderful letter from Marlon Brando saying he liked it. So I got it from the secular and the religious.
That's great. That's
Both
fantastic.
You got it from both
because
sides.
you, what was the name of the character?
Sonny. Sonny Dewey. I wanted to use my mother's maiden name, but that was the name of some preacher, so I didn't want to get a lawsuit. So his Sonny Dewey. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that movie really struck me because I grew up in rural Canada in a very, very small town, and the preachers would come and we would go and listen to them.
Yeah, there's some of those preachers up there in Canada. I actually went to some. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They're a little different from the guys. I'm on the devil's hit list.
Well, we never had the Southern Baptists, but we would have the famous people from the United States come, and you could tell. I could at a young age who were the real guy. Now I don't know. I can't look into a man's heart, but some of them seemed fake. Like for instance, I saw Jim Baker. He seemed like a complete fake.
Well, he could be. Yeah, a lot of those guys. Yeah.
But I tell you, I saw Jimmy Swaggart, and I thought that's a real guy. And even when he did his apology on TV, that seemed authentic to me.
Yeah, but he does like he's minimized his crocodile tears since then. He's very talented.
You think those were crocodile tears?
Yeah. Billy, his cousin, who's his cousin?
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah, he said we work different sides of the street. That's what.
Really? So you think?
But the country singer, what's his name? The guy from Nova Scotia.
Hank Snow.
Hank Snow. Well, his son was a Pentecostal preacher. He was one of the first guys I saw doing my research. Jimmy Snow, has a church down there. But what happened was Lefty Frizzell's wife went to his church, so he knew Lefty was around her, and he was a drank and this and that. He says, God told me to tell you to leave Lefty. And Lefty called him up and said, well, God told me to tell you I'm going to come over here and whip your ass.
What were you raised?
Anyway.
What were you raised, Robert?
Oh, I was just a Protestant family.
Okay.
Mainly. Yeah. My dad was different. Yeah.
Kevin, you're Catholic.
Irish Catholic. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was raised Protestant. That's a little more. Catholic's a little more ritual.
A lot of rituals.
Protestant's a little more. I don't know if it's a little more visceral, direct. Maybe.
Yeah. Don't get my wife started. She comes out of a Catholic family in Argentina where the Jesuits ruled. But we won't get into that. We won't get into that.
Yeah. When did you get married?
Pardon?
How old were you when you married your latest wife?
Oh, I was old. When I met my father-in-law, I said, I don't want to call you a father or son, he said.
It's amazing.
And then I told Wilford Brimley, Wilford, he's a character, that guy. He was a Jack Mormon. He was a bodyguard for Howard Hughes. He sings jazz with a band. He's a very interesting guy, Wilford Brimley. When I came up, I said, Wilford, I got this young woman that's much younger than me. Everybody thinks she's too young, this and that. He said, let me tell you something, my friend. The worst thing in the world for an old man is an old woman.
Now you do have people. You have a much wider interest than most actors, right? Most actors, I think, hang out with other actors or whatever, or go to parties or whatever.
That's okay. I like a good Hollywood party when I'm out there. We live in Virginia, actually.
Yeah.
My wife's from Argentina, but she says Virginia for her is the last station before heaven.
Oh, that's nice.
She loves it here. And, I love Texas, but we like living in Virginia at the moment,
Yeah.
And how do you keep up with a young lady like that?
Oh, well, I don't know. She keeps me going. She looks after me well.
Here's what I was telling Kevin during the break. I was saying, you're 80 years old, right, sir?
Yeah, I'm 80 years old, right.
Now, I see you, when you're interviewed, you don't look 80 at all. You're powerful and you talk, but then you can do parts like I saw. I remember in Convicts. That's where I thought you looked the oldest.
Yeah,
you looked like a real 80-year-old guy.
Well, that was another Horton Foote script, and the director of Tender Mercies, who did not direct that, liked that movie so much he gave it as Christmas presents to his friends. That was a nice film that a lot of people didn't see.
Oh, that was a beautiful movie.
I had a wonderful career of 4 or 5 movies with Horton Foote, and then I had also with Coppola. And had I never done anything but those 2 guys' works, it would have been a wonderful mini career for me. There were two wonderful talented people that gave me great parts and everything. But it was great working with Horton. You know, how many people you have a friend for 50 years, for God's sake?
Oh, that's nice.
That's
unbelievable.
And in the movie of Get Low that I did, it was so. I loved that movie. My wife loved it so much. I wanted Horton to see that before he died because it reminded me of his work. But then he died before it came out.
Oh.
And when I was doing the final speech for the audience, my wife was off camera and she got a telephone message that Horton had just died.
Oh.
Wow.
When I was doing that speech about death.
Yeah.
Wow.
So ironic. It was like full circle from To Kill a Mockingbird. You know.
Yeah.
And that's also interesting that you were doing the speech in Get Low, and in Tomorrow, you in the last scene were in a coffin.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, also in the coffin yeah. Well, you mean in the Convicts? I was in a coffin.
In Convicts, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
So who did Convicts?
Who directed that?
Yeah.
Pete Masters, and that was Horton's first cousin. Yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That was an amazing movie, and that was a character that was, I guess he had dementia.
Yeah. I played him like one of my uncles moved to Texas from Virginia, and I sat on a grave. Whose grave am I sitting on here? and I made that up. Horton would sit under the cameras. He'd write. I say, Horton, could I try change a little? Go ahead, Bobby. That's okay. Then he'd watch it. They say cut. He'd go back to writing something else. But he didn't mind if he changed a little something. You know, not so much the text, but he was great to work with, Horton. He was really an actor's friend and ally. Some of these directors you work with are an actor's enemy.
Yeah.
Well, Tender Mercies was the best movie ever, but I remember a line in Tomorrow that was so cool. I just remember it now. I'm going to screw it up, but it was when they come and take the boy from you.
Yes.
And you say, do you remember the line?
Once you refresh my memory, it's been a long time.
You say, I expected it. I reckon that's why it took me by surprise.
Yeah, I think that was scripted, though. Yeah, with Horton. Wonderful line.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see that movie for a year. I was so ticked off at the producers and everybody. They cut a scene where I ride on my mule 30 miles to see that son when he's grown up. I say his name, he doesn't recognize me. I take off my hat to see if he'll recognize me. Then he doesn't. And I get in my mule and ride and go back home 30 miles. Wow. And I had a great moment. One of those moments I got so emotional I couldn't even speak. Yeah. And they cut the scene.
Oh, that is interesting because in that movie it is a little choppy at both ends.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I won't go into the reasons why that could be, but but overall it was a good experience, and it's always great. It was great working with Horton.
Do you have other scenes that have been cut that you wish were not?
Yeah, probably. I can't think of any right now. Let's hope Billy Bob doesn't cut any of mine from this.
Well, I'm glad to hear that Billy Bob is directing.
Was the most unique script I've probably ever read. The one, Jane Mansfield's Car is the name of it. Billy Bob script. Yeah. And the people, he sent the script to the same people that financially backed 7 Days in Utopia. He never heard from them because a lot of the preachers will not come see this movie. Of course, if they come, they might like it underneath. See, but, it is so secular but so accurate.
Yeah,
you can't. Like a guy called in, a faith-based station called in when we were doing publicity, and he brought up the fact that in the Old Testament there's a lot of R rating.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so it's the secular and as long as it's done accurately and beautifully, it can be a little shocking to some people. But as long as it's done well, as Billy Bob has done, I think in this movie, then it becomes a valid statement of filmmaking.
Right.
When you do a movie, since Gus McCrae was such an incredibly fully realized character and so great. Then when you do Broken Trail or Open Range or anything like that, do you have to try not to go into that, or is it you know what I'm saying?
What do you mean go into it?
Well, is it a tough thing to try to match that because they're similar characters?
Well, it's similar to a point. Yeah, they are. I actually feel that if you looked at Broken Trail in its entirety, I think it was better made than Lonesome Dove.
Really?
Oh. I mean, Lonesome Dove's my bad, but it's right up there, and it. And somebody said, this and that. It's not a faith-based movie, but it's a wonderful movie in that these guys saved 5 Chinese girls from servitude and prostitution. The original script, and and it was really nice to make. But like with Lonesome Dove, you get 7 hours to develop a character. And a lot of actors won't do TV because you do TV in your career and you try to get out of it to get into features. But then once you get a certain leverage, you'll go back to do something like Lonesome Dove or Stalin, in television. And television can be great.
Yeah.
Still action and cut. I mean, you're playing characters. So, but you do have sometimes more time to develop a character.
And Westerns are my favorite movies. They always go like Westerns are dead, and then a Western.
No, they're not dead.
It's great.
People say that, but people always look for them, and they're always doing them. There's a flux of a bunch coming back for TV now and everything.
There was a great Western a couple years ago about with a big long title. Remember that movie, Kevin? The Coward.
The Coward.
Jesse James and the Coward.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was interesting.
Did you ever see that?
Yeah, I thought it was well done. Yeah,
I thought that was amazing, and they had no music.
The guy did good playing Bob Ford, but Lucas Black would have been terrific too. Boy, he would have been great playing that part.
Yeah.
No, I like some of what Brad Pitt does. Did you ever see him do the movie Snatch?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He was fantastic. He was fantastic playing that gypsy. Because I know a little, but I directed a movie once called Angelo, My Love, where I only used one professional actor, and all the rest of the actors were American gypsies, and they were terrific natural actors. But Brad Pitt, I think, went up to Northern Ireland and picked up that lingo. It was terrific.
Well, thanks a lot, Mr. Duvall, for all your time. You're awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Duvall.
And say hello to Dennis Miller and tell him next time I expect to talk to him.
What the?
Dennis Miller Show.